Welcome learners, we are into the second part of module 4, Mastering Articulation, the Target Language. The highlights of the lectures are language and its importance, how to achieve effectiveness of communication in the target language, and the differences between articulation and pronunciation, and how to improve articulation and minimize mother tongue interferences. Let us quickly look into what is language. Language is a conventional way where members of a particular group or community communicate either through spoken form or written form, consisting of the use of sounds, words and sentences in a given structured way. Communication generally can be stated as the process of transmitting information from one person to another in a mutually understandable language. It is also the tool to express ideas and thoughts. Remember, no two persons can speak alike. Why language is important? In most accounts, the primary purpose of language is to facilitate communication in the sense of transmission of information from one person to another. What is distinctive in one language may not be distinctive in another or may be used in a different way. So, being unable to communicate is living with a serious impairment. It is very difficult and near impossible to adapt and get along with people if there is no way to communicate with one another. So, before going into the main discussion, let us see that what constitutes that effective communication. This chart below will help you to develop the speaking skills. You see here the message should be very clear and it should be correct, it should be concise, it should be concrete, it should be coherent, it should be courtesy and it should be complete. The idea should be complete. Now, all the 7 C's are interlinked with another. You cannot escape any one of this. The effectiveness of communication. Any normal human being can learn and speak one or more languages. We interact with various kinds of people on daily basis. However, the art of communication is a skill and ability that should be acquired by training. A role play which may shift from intrapersonal to interpersonal communication verbally and non-verbally. The context may vary, like formality versus informality, communication within and outside organization, with the same or different language and geographic space. The effectiveness of communication or the exchange of information results from the common understanding between two persons. The elements in the communication process, such as proper coding and decoding of message, minimizing noise and the desired feedback, determine the quality of communication. So, hindrance in any one of these elements can reduce communication effectiveness or lead to communication breakdown. We on an average spend 70 to 80% of our time in interpersonal communication with various stakeholders. Now, what is the distinction between articulation and pronunciation? Language are immensely complicated structures. One realizes how complicated any language is when trying to learn it as a second language. The most obvious aspect of language is speech. Speech is not and essential to the definition of an infinitely productive communication system such as it is constituted by a language. But in fact, speech is a universal material of most human language, and the conditions of speaking and hearing have throughout human history shaped and determined its development. The study of anatomy, physiology, neurology and acoustic of speaking a language. Now, articulatory phonetics relates to the physiology of speech. Articulation refers to the individual movement of speech organs such as tongue, jaw, lips, etc. in order to produce sounds. It is about the manner in which sounds, that is vowels and consonants, is produced with the assistance of speech organs and the flow. What is pronunciation? Pronunciation refers to the way words need to be sounded when speaking, that is, how syllables of a word need to be pronounced, focusing on rhythm, stress and intonation. The control of the flow of air and the shape of the mouth are the keys to clear pronunciation. Pronunciation is a manner a word needs to be sounded when speaking. How to improve articulation? The first point is phonetic drill. Learn the phonics of a language through phonetic symbols. Know the point and manner of articulation of a sound. Remember, each symbols describe a single sound which is in fact different from a letter of an alphabet. It is one of the most valuable tool in learning the sound system of a target language. Learning the sounds will help one to pronounce familiar and unfamiliar sounds of a language. How to improve the articulation? The second point is auditory reinforcement. Perceptual and productive language skills can be strengthened through listening and speaking activities, making learners aware of troublesome sounds through listening and discrimination practices. The traditional listen and repeat approach to communicative language teaching is a good technique to improve the spoken form. One can consider minimal pairs that have different meaning and differs only in one sound, either used both in isolation at a word level or in context, that is at the sentence level. We can see here few of the minimal pairs: labiodental, fa and va, as in fan, van. Velar sounds like k and g, as in back and bag. Vowels, look at the vowels, a and e, as in desk and disc. A and a, as in wet and wait. The third point is visual reinforcement. Real-time visual display helps the learner to develop the sense of the relationship between the patterns they produce. One of the possible convention or making the word stress visible is writing the stressed syllable in capital letters, such as fashion, session, behave. English, unlike other Indian languages, is a stressed language. Therefore, practice through oral repetition, drills and tapping themselves, learner will find it easy to know how the patterns of intonation, stress and rhythm work in a language. The fourth one is tactile reinforcement. One of the forms of this reinforcement includes placing fingers on the throat in order to feel the vibration of the vocal cords, and it may be useful when teaching the distinction between voiced and voiceless sounds. For example, when you pronounce the sound r, your tongue feels liquid and your jaws is tight. The fifth one is audio feedback. Tape recorders as an aid will enhance in two ways. One, for listening to the recorded native speaker's discourse, and second, for taping one's own voice and replaying one's own production. This way you can help your voice to maximize it. The sixth point is multimedia enhancement. Multimedia such as video recorders may serve both as a source of learning material and feedback. Students may not only view a native speaker's production or speech, but also can see and hear themselves if it is videotaped. It is interesting to observe that English has seeped into our mother tongue so generously that we generally are unaware of. With the rise of English usage in India, we consciously or unconsciously give way to English vocabularies or phrases while speaking in our mother tongue. However, what is more interesting that while borrowing words from a foreign language, say English, little do we realize that we modulate it in our own way. We feel easy to articulate, thus distorting the language from which we borrowed. The mother tongue influence is so strong because we learn other language at a larger stage outside the home domain. This is quite natural across speech communities. We must learn that we must minimize mother tongue interferences while speaking a second language or a foreign language. This can be minimized to an extent by being a little conscious on the sounds of a language possess, and then make an effort to practice it. In this chart, one can see how Hindi speakers use English words. Now, you can see that most of the cases that when English was borrowed into Hindi, the vowel insertion was a very common phenomena to simplify the consonant clusters. Okay. For example, you see wherever there was a consonant cluster like r and k, rik, you see the word park was being borrowed by Hindi speakers and made it into as parak. Similarly, bulb was used as balab, glass as gilas, sprite as sprite, horn as haran, utilize as utilage, music as music, present as present, decision as decision, solution as solution, copy as copy, call as call, body as body. So, students, you must focus on all these consonant clusters and vowels and try to minimize this. The more you speak, the more you can minimize mother tongue interferences. So, there are no shortcuts to perfect pronunciation. However, there are some ways you can practice more effectively and improve your skills faster. Number 1, listen to yourself. Hear the pronunciation errors in your speech. Second, slow down. You should speak neither too fast, neither too slow. The third is picture it. Close your eyes and think about how to make a sound before saying it. Fourth, watch yourself. Stand in front of a mirror to see the placement of your articulators. Copy the experts and listen to it. Practice English alone. Pronunciation problems persist because we do not speak. Okay, we are hesitant to speak. So, in that case, you can find a language buddy. Find a friend who is interested in improving their English. At the same time, pay attention to intonation and stress. Pronunciation is more than mastering the sounds. Lastly, what you can do is sing a song. It helps to relax and just get those words out, as well as helping your rhythm and intonation. Give each of these tips a try next time you have a chance and find out which of them works best for you. Remember, none of them is an instant fix, but they will help you to reach your goals as a part of your regular practice. So, we conclude this lecture by saying what we have learned. Learning a language is not just learning grammar and vocabulary. It empowers one to express one's own thought and ideas or action in the most significant way with clarity, precision and accuracy. So, how do you empower yourself as a professional with good articulation? It creates more positive attitudes and less prejudice. Good articulation may make an employee more valuable in the workplace. And third, it provides a competitive edge and one can participate more effectively and responsibly in a multicultural world. So, learners, let us summarize it. Learning a language is not just learning grammar and vocabulary. It empowers one to express one's own thought and ideas or action in the most significant way with three things: clarity, precision and accuracy. So, how does good articulation empower a professional? Number one, it creates a more positive attitude and less prejudice. Third, good articulation can make an employee more valuable in the workplace. And third, it provides a competitive edge and one can participate more effectively and responsibly in a multicultural world. I do hope learners you have benefited from this lecture. For any queries, you can contact me. Thank you.